Welcome back to Willow Creek Hillside Homestead. It is garden season here and we've already got a bunch of stuff planted, and I'm going to talk to you about our tomato plants today. What are some of the ways that you can prune them and how you can plant them to give them the most benefit of being healthy healthy starting off. So I've got some tomato plants that I don't have in the ground yet. These actually are past time getting into the ground, but we're going to take a look at them and we're going to prune them and get them in the ground hopefully today. Now these I've already started on just a little bit. If you notice,
they look like palm trees.
They do kind of look like palm trees. Their stalks are super long and I've already cut off their lower branches, except for like right here. What you'll want to do is cut off all of these lower branches and only leave the crown, which is like these top like 3 branches. Never prune off the top of your tomato plant because you will stop it from growing. So I typically leave about the first 3 sets, and then when I go to plant them, what I'm going to do, I'm going to plant them up to that crown as deeply as I can. That way they can get maximum root growth. If you look at a tomato, you can see, I believe you can see all these little fuzzies and these little bumps. This is actually wanting to take root. So wherever you put a tomato plant, however deeply that you bury it, it's going to take, yeah.
I didn't know, I thought that was just due for like
protection
animals
of some sort.
Yeah.
Well, it's where that it wants to take root. So I'm just going to cut everything off and then I'm going to bury this plant as deeply as I can. Now, this is the first year that I'm doing it this way. Whenever I was growing up, we were always taught to heal up the dirt around the tomato plant, which basically does the same thing. But if you can get your plants deeply in the ground without having to heal them up, then that's really the way to go. So all I'm doing is going through and cutting off these lower branches.
Is it yellow like a nitrogen deficiency?
Leaving the top crown. Yellow can be a nitrogen deficiency or it can be a sign of disease. Tomatoes really like to get diseases for some reason. Blight, just different things. So you don't want any of these leaves touching the ground at all. Now these tomato plants come out of a local hothouse, and it's kind of getting close to the end of the season for her because everybody comes pretty early and gets those plants. So these are looking a little bit rough, but they will perk right back up once we get them into the ground. So all I'm doing is going through, cutting off all of these lower leaves, just leaving like the top little 3 crown of it, and then moving on to the next ones. I've got several trays here. Now, if you talk about tomatoes, there are 2 types of tomatoes, determinate and indeterminate tomatoes. Determinate also may be called dwarf or bush tomato. They're not going to get as tall. Determinate means they have a determined height and they have a determined set number of blooms that they're actually going to have. Now, most of the tomatoes that I'm familiar with are indeterminate, and I never realized that. I never knew there was a difference. I had an uncle that passed just, I believe, last year before last, and he would grow tomatoes huge, like as tall as his house, and I thought, what kind of tomato does he have that happens? I didn't realize he had the same kind of tomatoes that I have. He just knew how to take care of them. So this year, we're going to try, our goal is to grow some tall tomatoes, and we'll see how that turns out now that I know that there is a difference. So all of the varieties that we have here, I've got some celebrities, some big beef. I think that's a hybrid between beefsteak and big boy. I'm not exactly sure on that, so don't quote me on that, but
it makes sense.
I think that's what that's a hybrid of. We've also got some Cherokee purple. I've never grown those before. So yeah, we've got several different kinds. Now, so a determinate means it has a set number or a set height it's going to get, and it also has a set number of blooms. Now, an indeterminate means it can just keep growing as long as you have the health that allows it to. Okay, so these plants that I had, these little ones, they've come from a local hothouse. Now, we did get some varieties from our local Lowe's store because they had varieties that our local hothouse didn't. And this is a Cherokee Purple. We've never grown these before, but I've heard great things about them. So all I'm doing, same thing, I'm going through, even though these look really nice, I'm going through and still cutting these lower limbs off. That way I can bury it a little bit deeper. Also,
I'm gonna take those.
Huh?
I'm gonna take those and try to propagate those.
Well, okay, from what I understand, propagating, you have to take the sucker, which would be like what comes out of the armpit of the plant. Right now, there's not any suckers on these except for like little bitty teeny tinies. So, from what I understand, you all can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can only propagate suckers off of tomato plants, but you can put those in dirt and hopefully they will grow. Okay, now one other thing I'm going to do, since these plants are really young, if I leave these blooms on here like this, the plant is going to focus on making fruit. I know it's hard to do, and not hard, but I know we don't want to do it, but we need to carefully cut off the blooms. And
I want that. That's pretty.
you want it? Okay.
Yeah.
It's hard to let the fruit go early just because I want to see it. I want to have it quickly. But the longevity of your plant will benefit from you just cutting off the first set of blooms and giving this plant time to grow and get healthier. It's something that I don't like to do. I'm the type of gardener, if I sow a bed of seeds, I want them all to remain and work and grow, but that's not good for the longevity of all your plants. The first time I grew okra, I sowed it in a row and I left it thick because I just didn't have the heart to thin it, and it choked itself out. I did the same thing with beets. They didn't choke themselves out, but they just didn't have room to grow and get big. So I am learning the value of thinning stuff and pruning stuff, because in the long run you're going to get a better yield.
Also,
But
raw beets taste like potatoes.
you think raw beets taste like potatoes?
Yes.
I kind of think they taste like dirt, but in a good way. That makes sense.
Well,
I don't know.
I peeled mine, so.
Oh, you peeled it? Then it might not. Now these little blooms are very close to the crown of this tomato, so I just carefully went in and snipped just those blooms off
Also,
of that
they're
and
very-
made sure not to get the crown.
Also, raw beets are very juicy and they will stain everything.
Yes, raw beets do stain everything. We love to can certain things. Tomatoes are one of them, and beets are another. I've been canning beets for years. Usually my mother-in-law cans tomatoes, but I hope to learn how to do that this year because
You did last year, didn't you?
I didn't can any tomatoes.
Oh yeah, that.
I canned beets. Yeah.
You did beets.
Now this one also has a little set of blooms. Well, if you can see it, a little set of blooms right here
You gonna trim them?
on the top. So I'm just going to gently nip those off and not get the crown of the tomato. Okay, do you see this little, here's a little sucker, like right here, right in the armpit of the tomato.
So
if
a
you-
little notch.
Do you see? Here. See that little tiny, it's growing out of the armpit?
Oh, that little bitty plant.
So this little bitty piece, I'm actually going to just gently pop it out. But that is what you can grow more tomato plants from. You can propagate them. Let them get a little bit bigger. Those are called suckers. And you can make more tomatoes like that. I know the term sucker from my younger years. My papa grew tobacco. So that was our job when we were little. We got to help sucker and top it before it got too big that we couldn't reach it anymore. So that's one of my fond memories of the word sucker, is working in tobacco. At the time, I guess I didn't think it was very fun, but looking back, it was some of the best times.
It's just Duncan.
Our chickens are growing crazy over here.
It's just Duncan being a rooster.
Duncan being a rooster. We did get some chicks back in March, and so they're about 8 weeks old, and we bought all pullets, but somehow we ended up with 2 roosters. We didn't buy any straight run chickens, but
Well, the only straight one we got was the one silky, and she's a hen.
okay, well, we did buy
So we got lucky on that.
we did. We bought a silky just for the looks of it, and it was out of a straight run batch, but she's a hen. It's a bug. Okay, so here we go again, cutting these lower branches off ever so gently. And then we're gonna just gently say bye to these little blooms in here.
Bye bye.
Bye, little blooms. Hopefully you give us some more tomatoes in the long run.
Yeah. Bye bye. Sacrifice we're willing to make.
Yeah, sacrifice we have to make in order for our plant to live a healthier life. I'm sure that there's many ways to plant tomatoes, and up until recently all I did was just take this plant and stick it into the ground. When I first started doing it, I didn't even know to heal it up around it, so there's probably no really wrong way to do it, but there are ways that have been found that
unless you clip the crown off.
Yeah, well, if you clip the crown off, it's just going to stop growing.
So will it grow more leaves?
I really don't know. Can somebody that's more experienced at that than me know if you clip the crown off? I know that it'll make the tomato plant stop growing, but will it grow leaves out the side more? Will it still give fruit? You tell me, because I don't know that.
Yeah, leave in the comments below.
Yes, leave it in the comments below. We're learning. I've always grown tomatoes, but I've never actually put this much effort into working with tomatoes. So, I've got all of my tomato plants here. So, no, here's some little blooms.
Snip, snip.
Let's gently snip them. Got a little sucker right there. Okay. So we've got our tomato plants trimmed all the way up. We've left the top crown. We've got rid of any blooms. So we're ready to plant these here in just a little while. So hopefully that helps. So pruning your tomatoes, make sure there's no leaves touching the ground. When you bury it as deeply as you can. If you can bury it up this high, it's going to give a stronger root system, because all of this is going to grow roots out into the ground. And when you don't water the plant itself, water around it, and it's going to give a more healthy root system, because it's going to cause that to like stretch out, those roots to reach out for the water.
And
so
it'll make the root system bigger.
It'll make it bigger and stronger. So hopefully that was helpful, pruning the tomato plants in a way that is going to hopefully help them stay disease-free longer, and help them have stronger and healthier roots. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, if you would, that would be wonderful. And we just thank you for watching. Remember, if I can do this, you can do this. You're worthy, and God bless you.